Welcome back to the CR News Show on See Today. You're currently watching our signature segment, See the Stories. Now, do you feel that the weather has gotten hotter over the years? I was just talking about this.
Yeah. Even if right now it's raining right now in Jakarta.
I know. But I was talking to you how things have changed when we were talking about the snowstorms in the Northern Hemisphere just earlier in the previous hours. I never, back in the early 2000s, I never experienced snowstorms in the Northern Hemisphere in February.
Right.
Because it was already coming, and this is the end of February, which means we're nearing March, which means we're supposed to be in this transitional to spring. That's right.
And
so, things are changing.
When we talk about global weather, I think it's like everything's not on the timeline,
Yeah.
So it's traditional timeline.
It's either very random or things have moved slightly backwards. Like everything is like later now.
Yeah.
What used to be like, peak winter used to be
should be in December or
January. Now it's January, February.
Right, like it's happening in Seoul and Beijing right now, right?
Yeah, I mean, the last 2 to 3 years is very evident that we cannot deny global warming is happening, and it's a pressing issue that needs urgent attention. Its impact can be felt worldwide, including here in Indonesia. Although people think it's only wet and dry here, but it has certainly, diverted our attentions and affected a lot of things in our daily lives as well. Now, in our discussion on global warming, we'll explore ways to reduce it through zero carbon architecture. Now, this is really interesting.
Right.
I'm looking to invest in a new house for our family soon. So this has been a very interesting topic of discussion between my husband and I.
Yeah, we need to absorb a lot of information.
Yes.
So we can implement to our, at least to our house, yeah?
That's right.
So joining us right now in the studio is the founder and managing director of Rima Ginanjar Architecture. So hello, good evening,
Hi,
Rima.
good evening.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming.
It's lovely to be here.
You look great in all the brown tones.
Right.
Thank you.
Very
Rima,
earthly.
the earth tone girl.
So, Rima, can you tell us about your company? So your company focuses on building zero carbon architecture. What does actually zero carbon architecture mean? Is it the supply chain of the products itself that you use for your buildings, or is it more energy efficient in terms of how you make the building itself?
Yeah, so actually zero carbon architecture is a self-sustaining building. So just like imagining a tree. So you know how trees are self-sustaining, they get their lights from the sunlight, which is renewable energy, and they are very water efficient. And when their leaves shed, it nurtures the land.
Right, yeah.
So that's what's have to happen with zero carbon buildings. So buildings that is self-sustaining and they get their energy from the renewable, like wind or solar panels, and they're very energy efficient. You're right, and it's very low maintenance. So in the long term, it will save you a lot of money, because conventional building compared to zero carbon buildings, they actually can cost 50% less to operate.
So low maintenance, I love that keyword.
Low maintenance. Because conventional building, you'd have to maintain at least every 5 to 10 years, right? And you'd have to do minor renovations and things like that. And you'd also, not just that, like the electrical panels, like they're very sensitive to rain and water sometimes and things like that.
Or here, especially in Jakarta, like we are totally dependent to air conditioner,
That's right. So does that also come like air conditioner, air ventilation in the buildings and how you design it, right? So does it also mean self-sustaining in terms of design, or only just the materials you use and the energy efficiency that comes that you choose for it?
So in terms of design, like if you can imagine like a triangle or a pyramid shape. So I've always shared this throughout my seminars and presentations about the zero carbon concept. So the most fundamental part of the pyramid, the lowest part, is energy efficiency. And that is like the low hanging fruits that like everyone can do. And then it follows with passive design, which is the facade of the building and how the architects or designers design the space. And then the other things is renewable sources, and the last one is carbon offset. So all of these elements comes into zero carbon concept. So as well as materials, like you said, that is considered as embodied energy or embodied carbon.
Yeah.
So not only the operational carbon, but we have like two sides, or I like to say like a two-headed snake. So the operational cost or the operational carbon, and as well as the embodied carbon. So in terms of the embodied carbon, they're like the materials of the building and how we construct the buildings. Whether, do we use recycling methods, or do we try to use from local materials within maybe 50 kilometers and stuff like that.
Lessen the carbon footprint, because transportation equals carbon footprint as well.
We
It's a mouthful.
cannot say it's more complicated, but we more have more awareness for making everything based on that energy efficiency, and then also that what do you call the triangle concept again? So please elaborate.
Zero carbon concept. Yeah. So unfortunately, actually, the fact that building is contributing to 40% of global carbon emissions.
By how?
40%.
Yeah, by how? By how the building
Because
contribute
like
40%?
have you heard that we have been called like the indoor generation, right? We spend around like 80 to 90% of our time indoors, and that leads to a very high energy demand for our buildings, because we go to school in buildings, even when we are sick, we got taken care of in hospital buildings, and that has been leading to a very high energy demand, because we need to cool our buildings and the natural lightings even today in the studio. And because of that very high energy demand in buildings. But the thing is, the weird thing is, we don't really hear about zero carbon in built environment, right? Maybe in the news there's a lot of news going on about the electrical vehicles, or the decarbonizing the transportation sector, but we don't see these buildings being communicated towards the citizens. Maybe buildings is not that money making or something, compared to transportation.
Really? I think like the more, people are building more and more houses, more and more buildings, you'd think that they'd be, a lot more sustainable in terms of how they design these things. But wow, that's interesting. You brought it
Consume
out.
a lot of energy actually by staying inside the building.
It is.
I have one more question, Kai, before I
Go ahead.
leave it to you for the next question. So actually enlighten us again, because let me admit that my understanding is still stuck to the term of green building architecture, and then now come with the term of zero carbon architecture. So please again, what is the difference between those both?
That's a very interesting question, because I think during my studies and until up to now, we have a lot of green buildings here in Indonesia already. They're certified by green building specialists, but we don't hear yet zero carbon buildings, because in Indonesia we don't have that yet. Because you need to create a report, and you need to be very communicative in that report. How are you achieving sustainable? So we are trying to avoid greenwashing with zero carbon buildings. So you really actually can count how many carbon is in that building.
To that detailed points. So can you perhaps just tell us about the differences when you say that there are already green buildings here in Indonesia that are certified by green specialists, right? I understand that zero carbon means a lot more details, but what are the details that makes a green building? Is there a difference? Because it looks like it's not as energy efficient as zero carbon should be, right? So what are the main differences?
So the main difference with the zero carbon building is that we try to reduce the embodied carbon as well, and not only the operational, while in green buildings, you can do some of zero carbon aspects, like elements from zero carbon, but not
the full thing.
Certainly the full thing,
So it's just like a quota of at least this amount of green things that would decrease the carbon amount, right? But it's not fully decarbonized.
Yeah, because in zero carbon buildings, we are really trying to lower the carbon emissions. So not only the building's gonna be good for our health, but it's also need to be good for the environment, for the air outside our buildings. So it's not about just indoor air quality like in green buildings. Mostly they focuses on indoor air quality, whereas in zero carbon architecture, it's more holistic, and I think you are more aware of the earth and the balance in the earth, because you know how carbon is actually polluting our earth and it's making our climate hotter and more extreme weather, severe weather across the globe, right? Yeah. And I think with zero carbon architecture, if we try at least communicate with all stakeholders, the government, the developers, also the material producers, if we can collaborate and really trying to have a vision towards creating maybe a zero carbon or a low carbon building, then what we are doing is that we are taking carbon out of the air. So we're reducing carbon, and from my perspective, I think zero carbon architecture is an architecture that is trying to heal the environment from the roots. So carbon that is polluting our air and it's killing our children, right? It's really bad for the environment, and by taking that away, I think I am so motivated that I'm creating a better world for the future generations.
You know, I hope the presidential palace and the government of the new capital city will give you a call, because if they really truly want to create, you know, a new green city, this should be in consideration. Have they? I mean, just out of curiosity, what developments have you designed that are zero carbon here in Indonesia, perhaps? If you could share some of the projects that you've done.
Last year, recently, we have designed a football stadium in Kediri.
Wow.
While it's not yet zero carbon, we try to influence them and educating them what is zero carbon. But some of the recommendations that we try to persuade is not yet implemented, because at the first stage of the design, you know, when the owners set their design requirements, they did not have a vision yet, or at least a want in their heart that we need to build better buildings. So I think that is one of the main challenges in zero carbon architecture or in the built environment. There's not enough people knowing this concept.
Yes.
So this concept is not only useful for me, it's useful for all stakeholders, the government, again, the material manufacturers, because let's say if the government is concerned about zero carbon, then they will help to create regulations that are really gonna help us as maybe owners and also material manufacturers to shift towards a sustainable world. Maybe just like in transportation sector, right? They have a lot of incentives towards using electric vehicles, but we don't have that yet in the built environment.
I was just going to say, will they cut my taxes if I invest in a greenhouse? I mean, like, you know, a zero carbon house.
Kind of like so policy like that, right?
I was going to say cheat my way to have a normal car, but I get a greenhouse, but okay. Well.
Yeah. So let's try with this approachment, with the pentahelix approachment. So there is academics, media, government, private sectors, and society.
Yeah.
So in what level right now, the awareness of zero carbon architecture right now? Is it in the still below the surface, or actually it's gradual awareness right now is growing in terms of this zero carbon architecture awareness?
Yeah, I think like globally, like since the presidents and the global leaders in 2016, they agreed on Paris Agreement to reduce the carbon emissions by 2060 and ideally by 2050. They try to implement that in their countries and then their cities. And this agreement is right now, it's only an agreement, right? It's not yet an action. And the question is how we try to take this idea into a reality. So I think by education and training and also certification professionals that I'm right now doing is really helping to really improve that knowledge so that one day hopefully Indonesia will build its first zero carbon architecture, its first maybe zero carbon building for the government, and that building can be like a benchmark for professionals and students so that they can learn from that building.
Right. I think it'll be interesting to start from Kediri football stadium, right? Because it has like a quote unquote
So how many percent?
not good story, and then it comes with the principle of zero carbon architecture.
So how were you able to convince, not yet fully zero carbon, but what elements were you able to convince to input into the stadium that makes it a closer to zero carbon building?
Yeah, first of all, the most easiest part is energy efficiency. Even at our own homes, we can do energy efficiency at home, like using LED lights or using buying electronics that have Energy Star rating. So if you can look when you're shopping, and each electronics actually have this star rating, and you can choose the best ones, and that is lower in energy when you're operating it. So we try to convince it, of course, with the economical perspectives, but we also try to convince them in a more sensitive way, I guess. Like, I like to tell them, even in my seminars, that actually 1.7 of children under 5 years old died every year because of environmental problems. So most of them died because of malaria, respiratory illness, because the air that they breathe becomes so bad, and premature birth, as well as dengue fever and malaria. And this is what really motivates me about explaining this in my seminars and trainings. Zero carbon is actually a fight towards a better world. It's for our children. It's not something far away in the North Pole that the polar bear.
It's right here for our surroundings.
Yeah, but I realized that when I was studying in Liverpool in zero carbon architecture, I just realized that, and I started connecting the dots between climate change and the health of our children and the future generations. So I think the government and everyone needs to be aware of this, because I don't think enough people are aware of it. Especially, I was reflecting to myself before I was studying in UK. I was living even in Perth, Australia for 7 years, and I was not someone who's concerned about climate change. And then at some point, I was talking to my teacher because I was burnout of this architecture study that is so time-consuming and requires a lot of dedication. And she told me that, Rima, architecture, you are being the Khalifa of the world. You are the protector of the world. So that really motivates me to create better buildings, not just an architecture, but an architecture that is in balance with the environment.
Right. So we can say that you come with the purpose in terms of architecture by bringing the zero carbon architecture.
Yeah.
So our next question is, what are the economic benefits actually, if you want to say that of investing in zero carbon architecture, particularly in Indonesia, both in terms of cost savings and job creation?
Yeah. So in terms of energy, of course, there will be very lower maintenance and cheaper to operate. They also, for the owners, for example, they can charge higher price, and they can have lowered vacancy rate in their buildings. That is because it's green buildings, for example. It's a fact that they have collected. So there's so many benefits besides the emotional ones and the health of our children. But yeah, so in terms of the cost benefits, that is it. And in terms of job creations, what I found interesting was that actually just like a week ago, I was like researching for my module, right? I was creating a module for my training, and I stumbled upon a study about green jobs. Have you heard about green jobs?
Yeah. Just sustainable jobs that are that has something to do with sustainability, like what you're doing right now.
So it was like international study of 10 countries, and they found that we need about 12 million green jobs by 2030 to help us shift towards a sustainable economy, a zero carbon economy. And that is a lot of jobs, and it's creating so much opportunities for us. Like for example, some of the job lists that I was looking at in a green jobs book by the government in Indonesia, it's including hospital, hotel sustainable hotel managers, and also eco travel. And maybe like in the future there could be like a sustainable news anchor or a sustainable
with
news
a basic
reporter.
requirement for that.
Yeah, like
So someone who's really advocating and focusing on telling that side of story instead of, there's so many other things.
We need to take some certification for that, Kai?
well, she's doing the certification for architects here in Indonesia, right? So you are also training and doing certification. My question is actually, I understand that the long-term cost benefits are great, but my question is, should we, let's say, a client approach you, I want a zero carbon building here, this, let's say, like a building, right? Do we have all the technology, innovation as in materials, that would satisfy all of the criteria that would make it a zero carbon building here in Indonesia? Because it means that it has to be sourced locally, everything, right? So do we have all that in Indonesia ready? Should someday soon somebody would approach you and say, I want a zero carbon building right now?
Yeah, so zero carbon is a journey. So we want to get zero by 2060 and ideally by 2045. But the thing is, yes, right now, this moment, we don't have enough materials that are made locally and stuff like that. But we need to start this journey, and we need to, because if we don't take these small steps and trying to implement the zero carbon architecture, it's not going to happen anytime. So we need to start, even though it's not ready. So yeah, I think if a client approached me and they asked me if we should build a zero carbon buildings, totally, because in UK there's already a lot of zero carbon buildings, and in the Hong Kong as well. And I think Indonesia needs also that for education purposes, and it's gonna set the benchmark in the buildings.
Well, here's to you building your first zero carbon building. So can we start with houses, or does it have to be big buildings?
So I think Kai and Rima, our conversation is getting more interesting.
Yeah, I wish we'd have ours.
And see the stories. We'll continue after the break, still talking about this, and of course, still with us and Rima. So who will join us with our special things with a game? So
Yes.
don't go anywhere. Just stay with
tuned.
us right here on the Tower Show. See the stories.
Welcome back to See the Stories. Well, it isn't See the Stories if we do not ask our guests to play a game with us. Now, we will play a game about global warming issues. And
I was just about talking about that by playing
Yes.
Monopoly, but I think we are starting to play this one first, yeah?
yeah, because Akir, your idea was actually pretty magnificent. Because if we can make a monopoly with carbon taxing,
Yeah.
that would educate even the kids who play, right?
Right, including us, actually.
Yes. So we will give you questions about global warming with multiple choices. Rima will be up against Akir.
Oh, gosh, that's harder for me.
So yeah. So how are we going to do this? Are we going to ring a bell, or are we going to? Can we have the bell, please?
All right.
Because so each of you are going to answer the question.
Oh,
yes.
I know.
So
Yes,
No,
I think
right now.
we will play the game right now.
Yeah, we will play the game right now because we have already asked all the questions that we wanted to know. So, Aris, are you going to bring us the... Yes. So is it only you and Rima who are playing? What is Aris doing then?
No, I think
I will lead the quiz. Where should
Oh, you are a game master.
Yes.
Okay.
you're over here.
So,
Oh, you're off there.
over there?
okay. So we're a bit of a confusion delusion today.
Yeah.
Too much carbon in this room.
So we going to start the quiz. Here's gonna be the first question. It will be multiple choice.
you'll-
Also, the three of us are
Yeah.
playing.
Okay,
Three
you'll be
of
my
us.
team, I think, because Rima knows
Oh.
everything.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
So the first question. Okay, where is it?
Okay,
Well,
Plasma.
upon the
There it is.
what's the cause
Maroon 5.
global warming?
What?
I know,
Global
because because
I forgot.
You forgot
Okay,
to give us...
I forgot the
don't be so nervous, Aris. Okay?
Wait, who's gonna answer?
We're a team.
We're a team.
So,
And
We are-
this
yes.
is-
Against you.
Okay.
Oh no, Akir, so Akir, you're a team with Rima. I'm
Really?
I'm a little bit confused right now. But you know what?
Let's
I'll just let.
end the
Okay.
game. You.
Okay.
Yeah, because
Okay,
it's
okay.
the expert.
Okay. Expert versus amateurs.
Yes.
Let's do that. Okay, so B, F, greenhouse effect gases. Is that true?
Let's open the answer. Yeah, that's right. Because the global
Okay, the first
warming-
one. So don't forget, Rima, if you want to answer.
Just Ben.
Okay.
Okay.
Very fast.
Continue. Next question. Which animal is endangered due to global warming? A. Camels. B. Orca. C. Donkey. Or D. Polar bear.
Is it the polar bear?
Let's show
Is
the
it all
answer.
animals? Isn't it all animals? All of the above? No?
Oh, it's polar bear. But
Because, well, all of them are endangered, but polar bear are directly endangered because the ice is melting, right?
Yes.
Is that it? Is that it?
You've mentioned about the polar bear, but I think
Yeah.
it's basically to polar bear because
Yeah.
the melting ice there.
Yeah.
Right.
okay, let's.
So
They can't swim all
2
day.
versus 0. Come on, Rima, you can read
Okay.
first.
Come on. Come on.
I'm
Okay.
giving you a head start.
Okay.
Next question. This can help reduce global warming except A. Eating veggies, B. Walking and cycling, C. Take public transportation. Okay, Rima?
Take public transport. No, walking and cycling.
Except?
Exam.
Except.
Oh, except. Oops. Then it's your turn
Oh, okay.
because I got it wrong.
It's very unfortunate because I live for this, but
I
I
know.
guess I cannot eat steak every day anymore.
Okay. Open the answer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Eating
Because
steak every
it is
day.
believed that meat,
They're
beef meat,
very carbon intensive cows.
cows, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. But it will also change. I don't know. I can't go vegetarian. I'm sorry, guys.
Maybe you
I
can,
require
can
it.
think to eat other meat, yeah? Other than beef.
Once a week.
You're thinking.
Yeah, maybe.
All right.
Okay, we still have another question. The fourth question, please. Plastic contributes to worsening global warming, and the three principles for tackling plastic waste are known as the 3R. What are the 3R? Yep.
Reduce, reuse, recycle.
Open answer?
That is
B. That's
Oh.
right.
Not reproduce.
Reproduce require more carbon.
reproduce.
Reproduce means more human beings.
Okay. So we've been talking about some challenges in terms of making all of us here in Indonesia particularly more aware to the zero carbon architecture. So, but please, I think, Rima, you can give us some examples of successful zero carbon architecture projects in Indonesia right now. Is there any story of successful story related to this?
Like to be clear, like zero carbon architecture is like a self-sustaining building that I mentioned earlier, right? But I think we can see how green buildings are really successful here in Indonesia, and I think that is a small step. It's a significant steps towards a global a zero carbon building, and you see, we don't have that high high-rise building that is zero carbon yet. But the thing is with rumah adat or traditional houses like rumah joglo, they're very beautiful, by the way.
Yes.
And they are very sensitive towards their climate because our climate is here before us. You know, Indonesia has been tropical countries for thousands of years. And with the, I think, wisdom from our ancestors, I think we should take that back in our modern world, in our modern buildings. So instead of maybe, you know, taking examples from buildings maybe in America and taking back here, it's not gonna suit the climate because the buildings there, they want heat, right?
Yes,
they
and we
need
want cool.
warmth. Whether
Versus in countries,
versus in Indonesia, we don't want that. So with traditional houses, they have very long roofs, and that really protects the interior of the house from rain and also sunlight, and they're very well naturally ventilated, and lighting is very natural in our traditional houses.
Well, the key is let's go back to our local wisdom in terms of architecture, right?
Let's go back to wild Indonesia.
Yeah,
Why
at
not?
least in our houses,
Yes.
buildings is, you know, it's controlled by the government, but our own houses is controlled by us. It's our own responsibility. And the fact that actually in Indonesia, you know how, buildings globally contribute 40% of the global emissions, right? But in Indonesia, especially, about 89% of the energy is used by building,
Wow.
by homes, I mean.
Twice, from the global numbers,
So the 40% is the globally, but in Indonesia itself, 98%, 89% of that is from our residential houses. And that cannot be controlled by our government, right? So I think there is, the government need also maybe in like their houses, like maybe like seminars or something, to encourage them how to reduce their energy usage and stuff like that. I think I learned about a lot of like zero carbon principles, but I see that there's a lot of these principles or techniques that is very easy to implement, but why don't I see it implemented in our own house, even in offices? As simple as LED light.
Right.
We don't yet use that in every part of the buildings. It sounds so simple, but it's not yet been implemented. So I think, you know, we can start easy, and once we understand what we are trying to achieve, then I think we can lead to something bigger and better.
Right.
Yeah.
Gradually being bigger and better,
Lots of notes taken.
Right.
Yeah, inspiration for home.
Yes. So Rima, thank you very much for your time for coming here.
Thank
Hopefully
you.
can come here again with the new story about the
Your first zero emission building.
Yes.
Yes. To Rima's first zero emission building in Indonesia.
Oh,
Thank you. It's for our citizens, right?
Yes, that's right.
So City Stories will continue after the break. So again, stay with us only on the Travel Show, only on See Today.